Why people call. Okay, everyone. Hello. Welcome back to the Black Carnivore live stream. So today is a bit different than our normal thing. Normally, what we talk about all things carnivore and carnivore lifestyle. But today, I wanted to have an important conversation with Keith and Michelle Norris, who are the founders of Paleo FX, and we're talking about it because Paleo FX 2022, the conference, is next week, and I was slated to speak, and I learned some details about some of the comments that Keith made in June 2020, and found them to be incredibly troubling. And I reached out and we had a conversation, and and they were very eager to come and actually have an opportunity to talk about the things that were said, and and to begin to make some kind of repair to our community. So I wanted to give that opportunity for this conversation, and and I've invited you all to come and ask questions, and and to state your feelings and make your thoughts known, and I will be as well. I would ask that. I think it's fine to ask difficult and hard questions, but let's keep the language clean, and be as respectful as we can, because I think that this is a video that we perhaps can be used to continue to learn as we go on in the future. And a lot of people asked me why I would give a platform to people who have said some things that were so hurtful and so painful for many of us. And and I think that the reason I wanted to do it is because I think it is vitally important to talk about this, because this, these kinds of thoughts and these feelings and these comments are not only in a small corner of the health and wellness community, but they're in a lot of places. And in fact, I think I missed this happening back in June of 2020, because at the same time, I was having the same problem with Sean Baker in the carnivore space. And many of you may have gone to my website, to my YouTube channel, and checked out. I did 2 videos where I talked specifically about the stuff that happened with MeatRx, and and it's more or less the same thing. So I think that it is important for us to make sure that we continue to talk about these issues, and that our community knows this is kind of what's out there. So when you start to listen and listen to videos, when you listen to some of the influencers, when you engage, when you spend your money, make sure that you are okay with what that person stands for, and that you go in with open eyes. That's so that's it. So that's so those are the ground rules tonight, to the best of our ability. And let's just dive right in. So so if you guys could just give a quick synopsis of who you are, and then I am going to I want to dive in and read the basics of the comments. So for everybody who is here, I put a bunch of links in the description that I'm going to be referencing through this talk. But there is a link to a website called aboutpaleofx.com, which sums up one of the documents. They allow you to download a PDF, which is screenshots of the original posts, and then all of the comments that people made, and the responses that Keith also made back to those people. So, okay, so quickly, just tell us about what is Paleo FX, how long has the conference been going on, how big is it, all that sort of thing.
You want to tackle that one?
Sure. So Paleo FX, this is our 10th anniversary, and we founded the company and the event based on a need that we felt was there for people to understand how to put the theory of paleo into practice on a daily basis. So we created the conference mainly for us to be able to have a conference where people understood the practical use of like carnivore and keto and paleo and what those things all are. We created it as a legacy to our daughter, Brittany, who was killed in a car accident 13 years ago, and who we realized very quickly was, after her death, had made a really large impact in the world. And so we wanted to continue that legacy on. And so that's why we created Paleo Effects. And it is, like I said, 3-day immersion event into the lifestyle and particularly the practical application of paleo.
Okay, great. And how big has the conference been? It has vendors and also people who do paleo, or how does that work?
Yes, so we have attendees, sponsors, exhibitors, and basically in 2019 we had 8,500 people in attendance. Before we were shut down in 2020, we were expecting 10,000 attendees, and we were actually ahead of schedule to hit that number when we were shut down. So then, of course, we were rescheduled. Then we were rescheduled again. Then we were rescheduled again. So yeah, we it will not be anywhere near as big as it was back in 2019, simply because of what's happened with COVID and people traveling. And there's a lot of people that are not comfortable with traveling just yet and being in large groups. So there is a lot of exhibitors and a lot of attendees that have asked to move their credit to next year, which we have done. So.
Okay. All right, great. So thank you for sharing that. And yeah, let's just dive in and get started. So to go back to the post that was in 2020, it begins with, take this for what it's worth. The mind control of I can't breathe. Coincidence? I don't think so. I had been contemplating this thought last night and early this morning. I began writing, then I let it set, not fully able to express what I was feeling, not able to fully connect the dots. Then this evening, after returning from ceremony, I was hit with a similar message from 3 other friends. Let me see if I can put it together so as to make sense. So consider, 1, the quote unquote emergence of a respiratory virus, restricted breathing, that was leveraged and blown out of proportion for the puppeteers so as to drive fear and confusion among the populace. 2, government/puppeteer mandated lockdowns and mask wearing, restricted breathing, that has now become a virtue signal and nothing more, a tool of shame and divisiveness. 3, economic quote unquote suffocation of the 99%, while the political class, banking elite, and 1% profit of both money and power, in both money and power. And then another 3, a planned and orchestrated brutal event in Minneapolis with the resultant earworm mantra of I can't breathe, tightly woven into the propaganda-driven narrative. Now the entire world is wearing masks, the 99% are suffocating economically, and now the entire world is chanting I can't breathe. Coincidence? So I'm going to stop there. But for those of you who are interested, of course, go to the website, check out the whole thing and, and see what you think. But, Keith, Michelle, your thoughts?
Yeah. So if I can, would you like me to start at what the intent of the post was, or to go back and lay the groundwork of what I should have said had I not dropped in 5 steps ahead of? There was no lead in, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm good to go either way. If you would like my points of view on how systemic racism embeds itself in the U.S., or if you would like me to start with the original intent of the post and work backwards, I'm good. I'm good either way, whichever works for you, whichever works for your audience.
Well, I mean, I guess I would start there with the question of, if someone tells you they're hurt by what you said, where do you start?
True, I get that. I guess where I start is my sincerest apologies. That post was insensitive to the fact that I did not even consider the fact that people were hurting from this. And I'll give an example of how I correlate this. Michelle mentioned that our daughter died in an auto accident in 2009. I can imagine being at one of her services and somebody coming in, waving their hand saying, "Hey, did you know the Georgia Highway Department was implicit in this because of poor highway design?" That was not the time to hear that. And that would be super insensitive to barge into somebody's service and say that. I think that's it. And I've told Michelle this before, and the people who know me, I have few regrets in life. This is one of them, that I came in insensitive. I could have made my point in a lot more sensitive manner than to go in waving my hands and just jumping right to square five instead of leading in. So I do see now, in retrospect, and thank you very much for having this conversation, because this is how we move forward as a people and unite. We can't move forward and unite without these conversations, these very difficult conversations. And if there's any bright spot to any of this, it's that we are having these conversations that I don't think we would have otherwise because they are too uncomfortable. But now we're kind of in this crucible, and it kind of forces the issue. So thank you very much for having this uncomfortable discussion. So I deeply regret the insensitivity of the post. So that's first and foremost. If you would like me to go in about what my intent of the post was, I'm happy to do that, because I do think it's relevant to the discussion of racism that we're having now.
Well, so for me personally, it's hard to hear an explanation as anything more than a defense mechanism, and not not really a response to the hurt and the pain.
Sure.
So what do you think you could explain that would make me feel okay about what was said?
Maybe
I don't think anything.
Nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I can say anything at this point that takes away the hurt that was inflicted. I other than I'm sorry, other than it's a deep regret of mine of hurting anybody. And I think, people who know me very dearly know how I am hurting over this too. And I know I'm not saying that for a sympathy play or anything, but it disturbs me greatly that I have hurt somebody. It disturbs me greatly that my words have inflicted further pain on somebody. That's not at all what I'm about. At all. In fact, I think the irony of all this was that post was intended to unite. It was intended to unite all of us, because I think there's larger forces at play that are turning us against each other. That is my true feeling. And of course, it went wildly the other way. And I regret that. I definitely regret it. And moving forward, I would love the opportunity to be able to speak about what I think is going on to divide us against each other. Because I think it's an issue. I really do.
So I didn't really want to touch on some of the other elements of the post. I know that they're really important to you, but the racism that was inherent in that statement is what was so painful for so many of us, and that is, that's it. I mean, that's the crux of it.
Truly.
And the fact that you would feel like that was an example that you could use to clarify your point, as if there are no people and no history and no life behind all of that, And as if all of us as human beings were not traumatized by watching a man lynch another man in the street in 2020 before all of our eyes. And we had to watch that happen, a murder.
And I understand that now. And I get that now. And because we're having this conversation, and because this thing came out the way it did, I that isn't until it was reflected back to me, I did not realize that it was as insensitive as it was. I simply had no view of that, because it wasn't my intent, I think. But
Do
I
you
was
recognize that? Do you recognize that as your white privilege? That you
I
don't have to see
it is
anybody else's perspective?
it is and I think it is. I think it is an unconscious. So we as human beings, because of our culture, because of where we grew up, because of religious constructs, all of these different constructs have unconscious programmings in our minds that we are consciously unaware of. Even though I can say consciously that I have no racist intent. But in studying Jungian psychology and how the subconscious mind works, I know, because of my background, working class, blue collar, South, that because of the religious constructs that I came up in, not religious family myself, but we came from an area that was religious. All of these constructs get embedded in the mind, and they act out in ways that are totally unconscious. Now that is not like exoneration for what I did. What I did was completely insensitive.
And
What I'm trying,
racist.
what
And
racist, yeah.
racist. You have to
And
claim that.
I understand that now. I didn't then, and I think that's why these conversations are so important, because it wasn't until having these hard conversations and people saying, "Hey, man, this is how we take this. You might not intend it that way, but this is how you're coming off." And then I can go back and check and go, "Oh, okay, that's not what I intended, but I see that now in reflection." And so circling back around, that is why I think these discussions are so important, because if we didn't have this, if this discussion hadn't gone, if this incident had never have happened, I would have just been going merrily along my way, thinking I'm totally clear and free of all of this. But it wasn't until this incident, now I have it reflected back to me. And because I am interested in personal development is like my thing. And human psychology is my thing. And so now I understand the inner workings of the subconscious mind. And now I have this reflection back to me. Now I can address those things. Had this never happened, I would not even know what to address.
So when
So
did that reflection back to you happen? Because I I've continued to see you post that this idea that George Floyd was not lynched in the street, that this never happened, and that leads me to think that I don't know, that you don't think that any of these things happen. I mean, do you not think that Black people have died at the hands of the police unjustly?
not at
Um,
all. I think it's worse than that. I think it's not just a few rogue cops who happen to make it into police forces. I think it's more hideous than that. I think it's actually orchestrated.
Well, we already think that.
People die, yes.
We don't think that there's it's just a random a few bad apples in the bunch. I mean, the police are the whole concept of a police force was developed out of slave catchers. So that is the history of policing. So we don't have any delusions that that the police, well, let me think about how to say this, that there isn't a very orchestrated attack on Black people, but um, still a specific person died before our eyes in the street, and millions of people across the country were incredibly upset, harmed, enraged, saddened by that. And that exists today. I mean, that is an ongoing wound for people. So when you continue to make these statements, it's as if you don't care. That's how it comes off. Do you understand that?
I, which is ironic because I care deeply. I care deeply about this. Um, and my actions and my words may not reflect that, other than I can tell you that I'm deeply sorry that I offended anybody, that I hurt anybody. That was never my intent. Ever, 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 ever. My intent was to unite.
And I'm
And I know that's very difficult for people who saw that post to 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 buy or believe, but that is my truth, and I'm speaking it. Insensitive, yes. Regretful that I went about it the way I did, yes. Deeply sorry that I hurt anybody in this process, double yes. But that was never my intent. And again, my intent was to unite.
And then may I add something right here?
Mm-hmm.
Because something that after we talked this last week and I went and looked at everything, this is when I actually had the aha moment of, oh, okay, now I completely get why they think that you are racist. I totally get it. I see it. Now, the thing is that if we hadn't had that conversation and I hadn't seen some of this stuff, no one has had any conversations with Keith except one person, which we talked to you about that. And none of this part came up around that. It seemed like you were saying that there was not racism. And Keith was like, that feels like we're having a conversation about the weather. We have to all agree that the sky's blue. Absolutely. There is systemic racism through this entire country, through every single establishment, through every single organization of government, every organization of police, it's through everything. There is no way for us as particularly Americans here in this country to operate outside of a system of racism right now. But it's these conversations that give us the opportunity to actually start dismantling some of that and start really changing the story, and for us to come together as black, white, red, yellow, whatever creed, whatever, also LGBT, let's throw that all in too, because that's part of it as well. LGBTQ. We need that.
Mm-hmm.
We need to all come together as humans. And the thing is that whenever I saw all of that, I was like, okay, now this all makes perfect sense. Now I totally understand why they're saying that you were racist, because the comments that you made, first of all, you're like way ahead of everybody here. There's lots of stuff that we were being exposed to. Different people were sending us videos of that this was all orchestrated, all of these things. And instead of leading in and saying, hey, I'm seeing this, are you seeing this? What are you guys thinking about this? And the thing is in our opinion, if this was an orchestrated death and the Black community was used to perpetuate division, then this is even worse than we thought that it was. And we never had any idea that was a possibility. The other thing is, and I told you this, naively, we assumed that everybody's kind of seeing all the same things that we are. It wasn't actually until October of 2020 when I actually saw Theo Wilson's TED Talk, I think it's a TEDx maybe, and he started talking about how we're not all exposed to the same things. And then, of course, shortly after that, Social Dilemma came out, and then it was like, oh, well, no wonder. But the thing is that the dots didn't connect until we talked to you and we started seeing some of this stuff. And then it was like, okay, now we get it. Now we're understanding, because we were just not really getting, because we assumed everybody was seeing some of the same things we were, and that they were starting to see that there were videos out about the discrepancies and all of that stuff. And the thing is that we're not saying that George Floyd, this did not happen, or that happened, we're saying we don't know. And don't we all need to know the answer? Don't we all need to know the truth? And maybe we won't all ever know the truth, but do we all start asking questions, and do we all start demanding answers of these cops responding to what they're doing? And then I think, I don't know if
Have you been demanding answers?
well, this is the thing. I like the whole
Okay.
In the way that we can, yes.
yeah, in the ways that we can, we are demanding answers. And
I mean,
the other,
so I
go
I
ahead.
mean I think that so there are a lot of comments in the chat, so I want to get to that too. But I guess I just need to say that, like, the experience of 400 years of racism and terror, being actually terrorized, is horrific enough. It doesn't need extra conspiracy theories on top of it. We don't need these stories about whether or not somebody was killed. It is horrific enough as it is. And so for you to take that and try to twist it to talk about something, I don't know, some other big theory, it's bad enough that somebody is killed in the street in broad daylight in front of people and nobody cares. And he is not the only one. I mean,
Right.
there's plenty of video. So are all of those in question? I mean, do you think, and even if some wild thing that actually happened to be true, and George Floyd wasn't real, who cares? We've still had thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of other people who've been killed in police custody just like that. So why do you even need to go down that route when the reality is horrific enough? It doesn't need extra stories.
So I think to solve the problem, it's a two-pronged approach, in my opinion. There is the systemic racism, person to person to person to person to person. We could call that, I don't know, like the first level. That's issue number one. How do we solve that problem? I think we solve that problem by having these discussions. I think we solve that problem by what I alluded to earlier about the subconscious programming and the Jungian psychology that's involved here too, on top of the history of this nation and the racism that's inherent here. I think that's one, and that's a mighty big issue, mighty big, and maybe that's a lifetime to concentrate on to try to solve that issue. The second issue is there an entity that would use that inherent racism as a lever to further divide the populace? So I think there's two issues.
The populace is already divided. We're already divided. So what do we need more division for?
Well, this is my thought process on this is, okay, if we're being used to divide ourselves and to keep ourselves divided, then when do we come together as individuals to take the power back from whoever might be trying to do that? And the thing is we're not saying that that's what's happening. We're saying if this is a possibility, then we have a bigger problem and we need to work on it across the board. And yes, absolutely, a man dying in the street and everybody seeing it is
murdered,
absolutely
lynched. You have to use the correct words. Murdered,
yeah,
or lynched.
Murdered, yes. Totally horrific, all by itself. And the fact that this is a constant and ongoing thing that happens repeatedly. And it's not, and this was one thing, I think in Keith's post somewhere, he mentioned the last 5 Black men that died in police custody said they couldn't breathe. It turns out it was the last 71 in 2020. When we actually went back and looked, there were 71. And their last words were, "I can't breathe." 71 Black people. That is just unconscionable, for one thing. But yes, the fact that we all had to watch this video over and over and over again of watching George Floyd be murdered live. I mean, I remember it happening the day that it happened and actually seeing it on my feed and going, what in the hell is this? And I was like, what? How is this cop just like sitting there doing this? And how is this nobody's doing anything? I mean, you can hear people screaming, but you can't really, nobody's doing anything. And of course, I'm sure if there's the fact that there is a white cop with kneeling on a black person in an area that they normally are have to be worried about any kind of response to a cop, that they would be next and that they would be thrown down next to George Floyd. I mean, this is the thing. Like, where do we all come together? How do we, as white people, support justice being done? How do we do that stuff?
I mean, yeah. And then, but then, you know, you actually did something that ended up being divisive. So you
Yes.
have to understand that your community, most of the people who have left, you know, are the people who don't agree with you or care about what you, or, you know, they do care about what you said. The people who are left agree with your statements, or they are, you know, or they don't care, which means it's an unwelcoming environment for anybody who believes in, you know, humanity or who happens to be black. So you have actually created more division than you. Okay, so let me get to the chats. I'm sorry, because people.
Which I am regretful
apologize.
for. Hugely regretful for.
Okay, there were a couple that I tried to tag. So the luxury of white privilege allows these types of statements to be made with no thought or consequences of the long run. I'm not sure I see this as anything more than an attempt to secure the bag. So what kind of impact has your statements have they had on Paleo FX, and what is the future of Paleo FX?
Well, I think more so than the Paleo FX and the business of Paleo FX, it has been personally hurtful again, because I never intended to hurt anybody, and in hurting people hurts me deeply. So if we look at how do we move forward from this, how do we have these conversations, Michelle and I have very few skills. One of our skills is networking and putting on events and bringing people together to have discussions. So we are attempting to utilize our skills in building a platform to have discussions. And so and maybe that's a very, very small piece of the puzzle, but it's the piece of the puzzle that we can contribute to with our skill set. We happen to think it's an important piece of the puzzle. These conversations are vitally important, and we believe in that. So having this discussion with you tonight, having these hard discussions, is how we move forward from this. This is how someone like me can learn, unfortunately, from having hurt people, but can see a reflection of what my actions are causing in the world. And that reflects back to me. So hopefully I can learn and course correct. This is how we progress. In my opinion, this is how we progress through this.
Okay. Yeah, I get that. You know, and I will say that these conversations are difficult, and it is triggering for me and many of the people who are watching. It is also not my job to teach you about racism, and it's not probably most of the people here. But there are people whose job it is, who are paid, who are trained to do this. And there are a lot of resources that are available. So, you know, I would encourage you to seek those out. Don't try to learn just by having conversations with people, you know, triggering them, and, you know, you get a little something out of it. Actually, you know, go ahead and do that work and look for those resources on your own. Now, Zen Belly says, I'm curious if you regretted saying the vile stuff that you said. Why would you post something a year later about how George Floyd's murder was CGI in a studio with a green screen? And I did see that post that was on Facebook. It says, were you there? Did you see it? Who benefits from the division? Crazy stuff can be done with CGI. And this was dated February 3rd, 2021. So
another super insensitive post. My point with that was, if my son were murdered in such a way, I would want to know every possible reason why that came about. Every possible reason. No stone left unturned. And I see each person who has died this way, in a way, a son that just saying this is a rogue cop, maybe, and justice should be served there, and is at the end of the questioning. Might there be something more involved? Because if there is, I would want to know about it, because I would want my son's death to how can I say, be fully accounted for. I think that's the best way to put it. Fully accounted for. That insensitive, yes, because again, just not putting myself in the place of other people and their hurt. And my point being, I want to know the answers. I want to know what's happening here. And I won't be happy until I do learn every answer. What is causing this, both personally within myself and in the greater world, within the nation, within the greater world. That, I think that is where I'm coming from. Insensitive, 100%.
Racist and insensitive.
I deeply regret it, and I'm sorry for it. I think this point could be made in a much more simpler way, and by having conversations, and I see that now.
Okay. Do you have a chicken back there?
No,
we have a dog that's she's whining.
whining.
She's 16 years old, and she's past dinner time, and she's
I'm sorry.
She's
okay.
No, she's good.
She's okay.
She'll make
She's not going to die.
She's made it 16 years
she's
doing
16
this.
and a half. She's totally fine. She can last a little while longer.
Okay. So we have another question here. Ask them, do you not believe that George Floyd was killed? Also, Michelle, why do you use the hashtag QAnon, and what does QAnon mean to you?
Hashtag QAnon. I'm not sure that maybe I did. I don't know if I did or not. I'm not real sure. I think there was some stuff a while back that I was initially following, but ended up not really being what I believe or trust in. And I'm sorry, what was the first part of the question?
Well, do you or do you not believe that George Floyd was killed?
Oh, well, I believe somebody was killed. I definitely believe that someone was killed, whether his name was George Floyd or not, or however this was. Definitely, I think somebody was definitely killed. That was the thing for me. If you're asking me, I think that someone died. However this all played out, there is lots of information that's out there that we were seeing that was being sent to us by both Black and white friends, saying they didn't believe that this was a real thing. Now, the thing is that at the end of the day, if it went down exactly as we all saw it, that's pretty horrific. That's pretty, like you said, lynching, murder, right in the street, right in front of everybody. What? I mean, like, what? I don't know how we I honestly don't know how we get complete justice for that. And if there is something more to it, then my question is, what do we do about that?
Well, I think there are ways to get good justice for it, and that's what people were protesting in the streets for. One, talking about defunding the police, and I did see in your Facebook post you actually police support defunding the police and act, giving the proper funding to the agencies that are able to deal with the specific problems that the police are not able to deal with. Yes, fine. But there were people in the streets protesting, talking about what to do, changing the police force, dismantling the systemic racism that's going on. And we have not only George Floyd, but tons of other people. I mean, do you also think Breonna Taylor, that was fake? Do you think, what was his name? Ahmaud Arbery was faked? Or what about Philando Castile? Was that his name? The person that we all saw shot to death live on Facebook. So are you not enraged by those circumstances?
I've personally not seen anything else about any other deaths at all. I've not seen anything saying that any of those were. There was just a lot that was coming out. I sent you one of the things that we were sent,
which was very triggering and very difficult to look at. But
yeah,
yes,
and it is. I totally did it. And this is the thing, that stuff was coming through feeds, and people were posting it back and forth to each other and saying, what the hell is this? Like, was this real? Was this not? And if it wasn't, what are we all being put through? Why is this all happening? It was all of those things. And the thing is at the end of the day, yeah, the way that Keith posted and the way that he came out there, yeah, it was actually really super insensitive. And I totally get where everybody's coming from. And I told him that. And I can
do you think George Floyd is the first person who's been killed by the police? Is that the first time that you've been aware of that?
No.
Okay. All right.
No,
so,
not at all.
So for everyone who's watching, there is a website called Say Their Name. It's called Say Every Name, and it lists people who have been killed in police custody, going back for at least a decade, with pictures, our newspaper articles, so on. So if you don't know, that's a place to go to see a list of everybody. And I hope that people take advantage of that and become aware. This is not a new issue, and it does not need, well, anyway, go ahead. I interrupted you, Michelle.
No, it's okay. It's totally okay. The thing is that, yes, I'm actually aware of that website, and I am actually very much aware that this is not the first time that a Black person was killed in police custody.
And unfortunately, won't be the last. And that is why we are so passionate about wanting to change things. Because unfortunately, he won't be the last. And we all know that. So this is why we are so passionate about having these conversations and moving forward. Because if we come together, we have a chance to stop this. Divided, we don't have a chance. That my personal opinion.
So I just wonder if you might consider that your personal opinion and your approach is actually creating more division. So at what point do you say, maybe this isn't working because my overall goal of bringing about unity is not happening. It's not happening.
Well, yeah, maybe I should just bow off the stage, but maybe I am causing more problems than I'm helping. And I can see that. I hope to be able to be someone who can be in a position to have conversations like this so we can move forward. I think that's what I would, if there is a bright spot for all of this that came about this post, about people that got hurt, all of that, if there is a bright spot in any of this, it is that we are able to have this conversation that we're having right now. As small as a step as it may be, I feel like it is a step. It is one step closer on a 1,000,000-mile trip, but it's one step closer. That is where my heart is on this. And yes, I misstepped mightily. Yes, I regret having hurt people. Yes, in my attempt to take one step forward, I took 5 steps back, which I am deeply sorry for. And I'm my intent is to recover those 5 steps and move this conversation forward in a meaningful way.
Well,
And
let's just jump. Yeah,
uh,
go ahead, Michelle.
I was just going to say, and if that means we bow out of the conversation and we allow others to have the conversation, and that is facilitated on our stage at Paleo Effects, that totally, so be it. We're not here thinking we know the answers
Far
at
from it.
all. We're asking for answers. We're demanding to know more truth, whatever it is. And the thing is that, and going about it the way that Keith did was very insensitive and was very hurtful. And he is a person, and I will say this about him, is a person that just wants to know the truth no matter what it is. And that even if the truth is something that's going to be painful or inconvenient for him, he wants to know the truth. And he's been a truth seeker all of his life. And it's one of the things that I love about him the most is that he does not, even if it's what he absolutely does not want to hear, if it is the truth, he would rather hear the inconvenient truth than hear something that's a comfortable lie. That's just not who he is. And so the thing is his seeking the truth definitely hurt people and definitely made people very upset. And I totally see that. And I'm deeply sorry for any part that I had in any of that. And I can tell you, he's apologized to me immensely because for the most part, Paleo Effects is my company. It's been my company from the beginning, and he's been involved in it, but he didn't really get involved in Paleo Effects until 2017. It's been my company. And so, of course, he's been apologizing to me for the harm that it's done to Paleo Effects. And the thing is at the end of the day, Paleo Effects may not live on, and that's okay. It's gonna, whatever it's meant to do, whatever is meant to be is meant to be. I hate to see that because I think that Paleo Effects could be such a massive change agent for a lot of people, and it has been for hundreds of thousands of people so far. What is bothersome for me is that if anyone, you are the first person that's been willing to really have this hard conversation and really have a discussion with us, and for us to actually see the position, because nobody actually talked to us. When you said your comments were really insensitive and really, it was until I read all of the stuff, because there was a lot of comments on that thing. You saw it. I think it was well over 500. And the thing is that I didn't get a chance to read all of that stuff because I didn't find out about it until the afternoon when he did his live, and we told everybody that it was going to be taken down to keep from doing more harm. And so that we knew that people wanted to take screenshots, and we knew we weren't trying to walk away from it. And then we took screenshots and put it in his video, underneath his video in all the comments, so that it was there if anybody wanted to go back and see it. We weren't trying to push it under the rug or hide it. That's not the way we operate. And we've been happy and asked every single person that canceled us, that talked about it, that called him a racist. We asked every single person to have a conversation with us, and only one person did. And the thing is that I think if we had had a conversation, and I don't know this for sure, this is just speaking out loud, if we had heard this conversation in 2020 and really understood where people's thought processes were and how it came off, I think that he could have apologized back in 2020 and been able to actually start creating opportunities for there to be more conversations and what have you. But nobody was willing to talk to us. Nobody was willing to talk to him. And and nobody owes him.
It's not our responsibility.
Nobody owes him
that.
that. But if somebody had really wanted to give him their perspective so that Paleo Effects could be an agent for change and could change drastically. I think this is the one thing, is that there was a lot of effort put into that website. If that person had put in half as much effort to have progress and forward momentum and to make change for something that they claimed to love, which was Paleo Effects, if they had come to me, even if they didn't want to talk to Keith, Because if they had come to me and said, hey, this is our concerns and this is what we've seen, I would have seen that immediately. Just
Well,
didn't understand.
let's talk about that. I mean, you
Yeah.
talked about, systemic racism and being everywhere in the country. That is true. It is in everywhere and in everything, including Paleo FX. So
Yeah.
what is your plan or your approach, or what do you think you can do to unroot the racism that's endemic in your organization? Even, and now is even more so because a lot of the people that might have pushed back against that thinking left.
Mhm. Well, the thing is that at the end of the day, we do have a whole lot of supporters, not necessarily people who believe in what Keith said, because I think there might be a whole lot of them that actually don't know completely what Keith said, but they know Keith personally. They know me personally. They know our intentions around what we are doing and what we intended Paleo FX to be and what it was created for. And the thing is that yes, do we operate in a system of racism at Paleo FX? Yeah, absolutely, we clearly do. Is it something that we want to change? Absolutely, we clearly do. And the thing is the the research that we have been doing, the research that we have been, and the places where we have been getting information and learning, you know, can we do more? We absolutely can. And are we willing to? Yes, we absolutely are. And the thing is that we work with people of all race, creed, color, sex, gender, what have you. We all of that. And the thing is that at the end of the day, I think that we're all humans, and we're going to make errors in. We're going to be insensitive, and and can we turn to each other and say, hey, what you just said, what you just did really was, this is how it was insensitive. When we start being able to hold, and I'm totally cool with anyone that's in the Paleo effects audience saying, this is where we think that you've been insensitive. This is where we think that you have done something that is hurtful to an entire community, whatever that community is. And the thing is that I feel like that those are the conversations where we actually make progress. Can we all hold each other accountable? Absolutely. I want that. I
Okay,
want to.
but we're having that conversation now. A lot of people
Yeah.
have told you now. So
Yeah.
where's the forward? What I mean, I'm asking, like, how do you want to make restitution? How do you want to try to repair that relationship? Or do you want that relationship? I mean, that's always a question too. Maybe it's fine to have, a very narrowly focused, kind of conference.
Okay. So I guess the question would be, what do people want to see for a change? What do people want to see us do to change things? Because we're willing to do all of that. We The thing is we have Black team members. We have for years. That's not changed. We've had Black speakers. That's from year one. That's not. I mean, the anything that we can do that people will see as change and positive change moving forward and actually creating diversity at PaleoFX, we are willing to listen and learn, and whatever anyone has suggestion for any of that. I honestly don't know the answer to that. I'm being completely honest, because I don't really know what people are expecting. Or, I have seen some of the comments, and basically they think we're having this conversation to save PaleoFX. PaleoFX has to save itself.
Mm.
It isn't us that's going to save it. It has to save itself because the community has to want it. And the thing is that if the community doesn't want it, then it will not be. And that's okay. The thing is, I think that PaleoFX, by and large, can be a big change agent. But it will take the community to be able to input what they want out of PaleoFX, what they want to see change in PaleoFX. It will need input, because, quite frankly, I don't know what that is. I mean, I'm going to be real honest. I never believed that we were we were operating in a racist way. I didn't know that. I am now open to that and open to learning and open to hearing any suggestions. Is it that we need to have more speakers that are Black? Do we need to have more speakers of diversity across the board, not just Black? Maybe we need to have, you know, maybe we need to have um, some people that are Native American. Maybe we need to have more people that are Asian. Whatever it is, I'm open to learning that, and I'm also open to suggestions for speakers, because, and I've always been open to suggestions for speakers. Some of the people that have canceled us said basically we were not open to that, and that no one ever gave us any recommendations until literally 2 months before we were shut down, and the schedule was already set and the speakers were already done. So that was the first time I had ever been given a recommendation for a Black speaker. And people knew we had reached out years ago because, and I told you about this a day, that I can't remember what year it was, but the Ancestral Health Symposium, and then a little bit lesser us, was targeted in a article about basically being a conferences of influence and privilege and white. And when we reached out to our speakers and everything and asked them, hey, can you help us find speakers and what have you, we did do that and did reach out. And literally 2 months in January of 2020 was the first time any speaker from PaleoFX recommended a Black speaker. That was the first
I mean,
time.
I don't know that getting more Black speakers, I wonder if that, I mean, your statements, a lot of people have asked tonight, you know, for you to say point blank whether you believe George Floyd was murdered or not. And, you know, your continued, you know, belief that, you know, he wasn't, or that, I don't know, that he wasn't him, or that there was something else going on, makes it really hard for anyone to want to participate in this community, because that, you know, to me, that's like fanciful thinking. You know, the truth is horrible enough, like that we live in a racist country where my people, my ancestors, and I don't think I have to go back that many generations to find a generation where a relative that was lynched. So for me,
Right.
this is personal. And
Yeah.
so to talk like that as if it's, you know, I don't know, it's just like a fun coffee, you know, table, or you know, what's the word? Armchair talk about conspiracy theories. Like, you know, you're talking about it as if it's just an interesting intellectual exercise. I'm talking about like family. So
Mhm.
the reality of that experience is bad enough, and there are specific things that could be done with the police that could change things right now. And
Mhm.
and I feel like if that was something you really cared about, you know, you'd be out there with everybody else calling for defund the police, you know, change this law, don't allow, you know, don't allow this to go through, make sure that, you know, we change the laws so that police are responsible when they shoot somebody on duty. Um, you know, that if you really cared, I feel like those are the things that you could be doing. But, you know, you're sticking with that, which makes me feel like you know, I don't feel comfortable, you know, coming and participating, and I'm not sure what other person, you know, would feel comfortable participating. So if that's the case, how do you bridge that divide? Because the ball is now back in your court.
So I guess I'm not. When you ask, do I believe somebody was killed that day? Yes, absolutely. I believe that. Um, do I believe he was murdered on camera for millions of people to see? Absolutely. I do believe that. I am I'm struggling with this because the thing is that you're right that that's horrific all by itself. It is horrific all by itself. And I also worry, what if it's not just this? What if it is much worse?
How
And
do you get
I'm
much worse than being hunted down on the street? I mean, Breonna Taylor was in her home doing nothing but being home. So how do you get much worse than at any moment in time I could be gunned down for no reason whatsoever? There is no worse than that.
I think our point of view is, and what we're trying to say is, how could it get worse? It perpetuates ad nauseum, generation to generation to generation to generation, and it never gets any better.
This is the
That's how
story I'm telling you. I've already experienced that. So you're not telling
it.
me anything that could get worse. This is beginning with kidnapping people from their homes and forcing them on ships across the country, across
Right.
the ocean. That's already the story. So you're not saying anything worse. You're making something up to make it seem like I don't know, make like there is something worse. There's nothing worse than being kidnapped, taken away from your family, enslaved, beaten, raped, and killed. So
100%, yes. And I think the question is, how do we stop that? And I think that's the question we're trying to answer: is how do we put an end to that?
I made a suggestion. Get out there in the streets and
And
protest
that's
with everybody else.
and so that's I think that's where we get at that our sphere of influence is, I mean, we don't have any political pull. We don't have any clout, really. We have a sphere of influence in the, you might say, in the personal optimization realm. But that's kind of the end of our sphere of influence. We
But
don't have
it's
any.
not, because you're I'm sorry, I'm interrupting, but it's not the end of your influence, because you have alienated a whole bunch of people from this space. So your sphere of influence is much bigger. You've alienated a bunch of people from access to a healthy way of living and
And I
important information. So your
and I
influence is
regret
big.
I regret that. I do regret that. I want those people in. So here's a thing that we have been struggling with at Paleo FX since the first year. We are in Central South Texas. Michelle and I grew up in San Antonio. Huge Hispanic populations in this area, devastated by the foods they eat. So one of our big initiatives since the time we started Paleo FX is, how do we reach the Hispanic community? Because that's the community that we are in. How do we reach these people and get them to come in and to learn this lifestyle? Because it can save them. And they are South Texas is devastated by diabetes, heart disease, obesity, largely Hispanic. Those people can be helped by what we have. And we have, as of yet, found a way, and we have speakers from the Valley in San Antonio to try to get the message out to these people that there is a better way. I mean, that's when I talk about sphere of influence, that's our immediate sphere of influence, and that's where we're trying to push. But we open that up to everybody.
So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is at the end of the day, I think a lot of people also maybe believe that somehow that Keith and I make a whole lot of money off of Paleo FX. And quite frankly, Paleo FX has almost bankrupted us personally because we funded a lot of it. And the thing is it better if Keith and I walk away from Paleo FX and somebody else takes it over? Because I would love to see Paleo FX live on and help people and what have you. We aren't married to being the owners and the people that keep Paleo FX going. We don't have to have that. It's not, Paleo FX, like I said, has pretty much almost personally bankrupted us. And not because of this. It's been because of all of the years that we have put into Paleo FX. And at the end of the day, we started this to help people, to change people's lives, to change their health, to change their mindsets, to change all of the things that make us, to empower us all to be sovereign, free human beings. and that is food freedom and medical freedom are big things for us. And at the end of the day, we're always here and open and ready to learn and ready to take information and feedback and make changes and do all of that. If it needs to be that Keith and I leave PaleoFX and it's taken over by somebody else, we're okay with that. We created this to change people's lives. And if we're hindering it from changing people's lives, then we will get the hell out of the way, because it's not this event wasn't about us. It never was, and it never will be, as far as we're concerned. This event was about changing people's lives, period. That's it. And for Keith to personally have created the hurt and all of that for people, and for them to leave, like you said, leave an opportunity for them to actually learn and be able to grow and learn new things about health and all of that, then maybe that's the answer. Maybe we leave, and I'm okay with that, and so is Keith. And we don't have to be the ones that run PaleoFX. And I don't mind helping whoever wants to take it over get it going and tell them how things have been, how they were run. I have no problem with any of that at all. We're not married to that. What we're married to is people's lives being changed and their health being changed. And that was the whole purpose of this. And it was the whole reason why we started it as a legacy to our daughter, because she had changed so many people's lives. And that's all that either one of us ever care about, because PaleoFX doesn't pay us. We have not been paid by PaleoFX for years. So,
which is not a sympathy play.
No.
And I think too,
it's been a passion thing.
And I think too, we haven't had a show since this whole incident went down.
No.
We haven't had an opportunity to bring people in like yourself and to ask people to come in and have this conversation. We are a live event. We don't do online. We are live, and we haven't had an opportunity to be live since 2019. So we haven't even had a forum to be able to have this discussion, other than discussions like this. But we don't. That's not our forte online. Our forte is live events, and so this is the first opportunity we've had to gather since 2019. To learn the lessons that we learned from this incident and implement them and move forward. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now. We've been stymied for the last few years of not being able to put on an event and not being able to have this discussion in the way that we are set up to have the discussion, which is a live panel, a live event in front of a live audience. So there's that. We haven't had an opportunity to take the step forward and as a company to be able to do this. Personally, we've done a lot of work, but it takes, for that to transfer into a live event to a company. I'm sorry, the dog's going nuts over here.
Okay.
He's just whining. Come here.
So I just wanted to say that. So there is that. We haven't had an opportunity to leverage what we're good at, which is putting on a live show.
Well, I hear what you said about whether, your presence is actually, hindering a good live gathering of paleo folks. So I don't know, that might be something you need to consider. I mean, I've seen a post, a couple of people asking the question, why did you say Obama was the Antichrist, Michelle, and using the hashtag QAnon? So did you say that? And do you still think that?
Obama was the Antichrist? I don't know that I ever said that.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff on that website, so I would be.
And I can also say that I also didn't. A lot of the stuff that is being said is not. I didn't say that, and I don't know that I used QAnon. Maybe I did. I don't remember. I have no idea. I can tell you that I don't believe in the QAnon stuff, and I don't believe in that. I was looking at it. I was looking at a lot of stuff when it was first coming out, and a lot of it actually seemed pretty interesting. But
which fits our question everything attitude.
Right.
I mean, that's really how we got into Paleo FX. Question the government's recommendations for food recommendation.
Right.
That's really was the impetus of this whole event to begin with. And then if the government was wrong about that, what else was the government wrong about?
Right.
Oh, wait, they're wrong about, there's this whole medical industrial complex going on implicit with the
I mean, the
pharmaceutical.
government can be wrong about a lot of things. I mean,
Right.
clearly, we're all here in the health space. We certainly believe that we have been, there's been evidence to show that, sugar has been given this halo when, in fact, there are a lot of studies showing how bad it is. Smoking is another one of those things, yes. But that's not the same thing as, deciding that someone wasn't lynched in the street. And I see there's one of the other speakers who is scheduled for Paleo FX 2022. Theo Wilson is here, and he writes, "I'm friends with George Floyd's family. I know several people who knew him personally. He was absolutely real, just saying." So,
thank you.
Well, not awesome,
we don't know. No,
but,
I mean, I'm saying thank you for letting us know that,
right.
because we don't know anybody that knew him. We didn't. And again,
so for every person who's killed, you're never going to know them all. So
no,
but you can still believe what you see.
Well, that is the thing. That's where we do question everything, including the stuff that we're shown on TV. Because
we don't question the pain that's inflicted.
We don't question the pain. We don't question that that people have been hurt. And thank you, Theo, for letting us know that this is a person that that is absolutely real. We haven't been able to actually hear from anybody that hasn't been put on TV or anything. And we question everything. I mean, this wasn't about hurting people. It's about actually finding out what is the truth.
And again, the pain's inflicted.
Yeah.
The pain is inflicted, right? It's so.
Yeah.
And I would just say that the pain is inflicted either way, and it's horrible either way.
Right.
I think our point is.
I don't know. Why don't you let the people who are the object of that pain tell you what is or isn't painful? I mean, I don't need to be schooled about what racism is, what it is, the experience is, what information I should be looking for by someone who has not ever experienced it, other than to be the perpetrator, right?
Sure.
Let's see. The Castaway Kitchen says, "What work are you doing? Action steps. Where do you donate? How do you vote? Did you protest?"
Okay. So first, work. We do a lot of personal work on ourselves and going through some of the things in our past and what has created opportunity for some of the constructs, some of the programming that we have, and we've done a lot of work on that. That's part of it. There is a shelter in Kenya that our group and my partner are part of, and that we donate to. And then we have several different charities that we've given to over the last probably several years. I'm also have been donating members to Color of Change. So those are some of the things that I've been involved in the work that we're doing now. We do a lot of personal plant medicine work, and we do a lot of work, like I said, on ourselves. And that is including being able to see that we definitely hurt people. Obviously in this situation, Keith more so than me, because I wasn't as involved in this, but I take responsibility for my part in anything that did hurt anyone. And again, like I said, we don't have to be the ones that run Paleo FX. We don't have to be the people that do that. And we are sorry for anybody that was hurt by any of that.
And two, it has been all that we can do to keep this company out of bankruptcy since the pandemic came down. And that, again, that's on a sympathy card, but it's very difficult for a company to to donate to charity if it's just trying to keep a few employees paid and keep the thing alive. So that's
it's free. It's free to protest.
It is free to protest,
and it is free to protest.
And so interesting story. When the protests were happening in Austin a couple years ago, much to Michelle's chagrin, I was seeing it on social media, and I was like, I'm going to ride down there and see what this is about. And she's like, are you crazy? I'm like, no, I want to see. I want to actually go and see what this is about. So I hopped on my bike like a crazy man. We lived pretty near downtown, and I rode downtown right in the thick of it because I wanted to see what was going on. I wanted to feel the vibe, and I wanted to be right there with it to see what was going on. I wanted to understand. So this is the type of person I am. Michelle was going nuts, like, don't do that.
I was terrified because there was shootings.
But I wanted to see up close and personal what was going on. What were these people protesting about? Because again, this isn't my normal social group. My normal social group is kind of the woo crowd in Austin. That's the people I hang out with. They weren't the people who were protesting. I wanted to be in the thick of it and see that. And in fact, I took a picture of it when I was down there. That hadn't shown up anywhere, but yeah. So I got an up close and personal feel for what was going on.
Well, next time, join in. And I'm quite sure there's a protest this weekend that you can join in if you so feel. But so we're running along, and I know I've kept you a long time. I did want to say Daryl Edwards says he does not see a progression in your opinion since June 8th, and a number of people have said similar. The post that we referenced, there's also a video of an interview with you talking about, again, about George Floyd and your position there. And that was in November of 2020. So I'm not really seeing an evolution in terms of that opinion. I do encourage you to continue to educate yourself. As I said, there are lots of resources out there by people whose job it is, who are trained and have studied to educate people on racism. And so that information is available. Don't try to get this through a conversation. That's not going to work. And all you're going to do is traumatize the people you're talking to. You have to do the work. I'm sure there's somebody in the chat. Maybe you can post a link or, send me a DM and I'll pass it on of links. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but, so definitely look for that information. Someone asked, I thought they hired a DEI consultant in 2020. What happened at that? What happened with that? Yeah.
We actually did, and we worked with them, and we worked with them personally, and we didn't have a whole lot of a team at that point because of what had happened with COVID mainly. So it was just us, and anyway.
I mean, we were the Paleo X team at that time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. Now, there's a lot of people here. Please go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe, and click the little bell icon so you can get notification every time I go live. I do go live every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Normally, we talk carnivore stuff, so this was a little bit of a departure. I appreciate so many of you for coming here and participating in this conversation. And I know, it was challenging, it was difficult, and I hope that this was somehow cathartic or helpful for you. And I hope that, I was able to develop or shape this conversation in such a way that it was, helpful for all of us, for everybody. I consider it a gift for all of you who are watching and who participated into the chat and who came in here to have conversation. I consider it a gift that you were here and you spent this time and you listened for, we went long and you listened to this whole time. I consider that a gift. Thank you. And I hope that you, Keith and Michelle, also, maybe give a nod of thanks to everybody who is here, because this was a big deal for everybody.
It's a big deal.
Well, yeah, we definitely appreciate everyone taking their time to come and contribute and to ask questions and to be involved. And the thing is that there are many people that were part of Paleo Effects that I can say for my part, I'm really deeply sorry that you felt like that you couldn't talk to us or that we were not, this was something that you just couldn't be part of anymore. I totally understand that. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate you coming on and sharing your feelings and sharing questions and everything. And I do want to say this, we do not close the door on anybody. And so if there is anybody that we have hurt that wants to have further conversation with us or wants to ask more questions or wants to give advice of what they think we need to do next or how they would like to see Paleo Effects change or whatever, we are open to that. And that includes everyone that was involved in the website and everyone that hasn't been involved in the thing is that we realize that people were hurt and we acknowledge that, and we don't want anyone to think that we're just okay with that. We aren't. It is something that we're both deeply sorry for. And I just, like I said, if Paleo Effects lives on or it doesn't, I'm not married to either of those outcomes, but I'd like to see it live on because I think that it can help people. And if that means that we need to step out and let it be taken over by somebody else, that's totally fine too. So, yeah. So thank you. Thank you, Ade, very, very much for hosting this and taking this on. It wasn't your responsibility. And I do appreciate that you did make the decision to do this. And I know that you did it for your community, really, to get some kind of restitution. And like I said, we're open to whatever that might be. And if anyone has suggestions, we definitely open to that. So thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. We know it's a brave act to have a conversation, especially, within your community. So thank you. Thank you very much for this.
So if people want to share with you anything, where do they contact you?
They can contact me either Facebook Messenger is really great. It's a great place to message me. And right now, I would say that's probably the best place because emails are going to get buried right now. There's lots of emails coming in right now. So
yeah, I would say the same thing. Probably Messenger is probably the best place. And we will try to get to every message. We are just, 9 days from showtime. So we are buried in an avalanche of an upcoming show, but this conversation is important and we will make time for it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I do appreciate that. I can't imagine organizing anything. It's gonna, you're gonna be busy right up to the end. So thank you for taking this time out. And, that's just, I appreciate it. And, to everybody for the super chats. Oh my God, you were amazing. Thank you so much. I saw it, from Aletha and Mommy Does Keto and so many others. I'm so sorry. I am forever grateful for your support, and it really means a lot to me. So thank you all, and I will see you all next week. And let's bring this to close. Thank you, and hit that like button. All right, everyone, have a good night, and I will be seeing you soon. All right, bye-bye.